Hey everyone, welcome back to the dannphan channel. We're reviewing Netflix's One Piece live-action adaptation. I was actually kind of cautiously optimistic about the One Piece live-action adaptation. When they announced the cast of the main Straw Hat crew, I noticed that, hey, their races actually fit what they're supposed to be in the manga series. That's crazy for Netflix. I thought that they were overall good picks as far as actors and actresses. And before I get into a full breakdown of what is actually in the episode, I want to just get this over with and address it before doing a review of every single episode. Netflix took one of the most, probably the most actually, diverse anime of all time. There's all kinds of different races and ethnicities, and they're all just mixed up in One Piece, and it's kind of known for that, right? And yet, Netflix still does race and gender swaps for characters. And it only goes to show you that nothing is diverse enough for Netflix adaptations. At the end of the day, Netflix gonna Netflix. I will say it didn't bother me as much as it did in, say, like Cowboy Bebop or Death Note, just because the race swaps that they do are prominently minor characters, background characters, characters that don't really matter that much in the grand scheme of the series. So it doesn't really matter that much that they're not exactly like the character from the original show. All the characters really are wearing their classic costumes, clothes, but you know. So they're still recognizable, even though, you know, skin color changes quite a bit. So I'm not furious about it. I just kind of like sigh and say Netflix gonna Netflix. First trailer came out and I thought, hey, this doesn't look too shabby. It looks like they're leaning in the goofy direction, and that's probably what works best for a One Piece adaptation, because One Piece is a pretty goofy series in general. After watching the first episode, I can summarize in one word: condensed. Very condensed. You will notice that this first episode is very choppy. It seems like they're trying to get a lot done in one episode. They have longer episodes. Each episode of the One Piece live action is going to be an hour long, but even so, you're taking multiple episodes of the anime and you're just like squishing them down into that 1 hour time frame, and it's noticeable. It feels like we're blasting through the story at supersonic speeds. Overall suffers because of that. It's very not newcomer friendly. I think that they are going to be completely confused watching this and probably completely weirded out, as they stayed very true to the source material, to the point where it looks like a lot of the characters are wearing party wigs. I wouldn't have minded if they toned down the color of the hair a little bit. Actually comes off to me as taking a lot of inspiration with how Japan does their own live action adaptations, being that they try to capture the same visuals and the same cartoony zaniness that the anime will have. That's kind of what this adaptation feels like. It doesn't feel like they're trying to make it for a new audience. It feels like they're trying to make it for the old audience. And maybe that's a little bit controversial for a lot of reviewers. Some people are saying, well, because you're making it so much for the old audience, you're making it difficult for the casual Netflix watchers to jump in and actually learn about what is One Piece. And you know, it's kind of a fair criticism, but at the same time, you should be trying to please the old audience first. Above anything else, you should be trying to please the fans of the original. You know, considering that the clothes is taken straight out of the manga, and even the color spreads, they just recreate a lot of the clothes that you see the characters wearing. It's so true to the series that they look like they're wearing party wigs because the colors of their hair is so bright. And yet, I'm a little bit confused at why Luffy is not wearing his signature sandals. He's wearing shoes, just normal looking sneaker type shoes. What's up with that? You know, it's not even something that makes me mad. I'm just confused. I don't know why he's not wearing the signature Luffy sandals. Maybe it's because the actor genuinely had trouble moving around in them. I hope maybe later they bring in the sandals just for like one scene at least, just so, you know, whatever. All right. Let's get into the breakdown of the episode, shall we? Opens up with Goldie Roger being executed, which, you know, makes sense. This is what starts the Great Pirate Era, right? And it's overall a pretty good scene. It's very, like, similar to what you have already seen in, like, the anime. Then we transition from his execution to Luffy talking to the audience, basically. And he's kinda, you know, fishing out the water from his sinking boat. This is the scene where he gets into the barrel and, you know, goes off into the sea, waiting to essentially be rescued or picked up by land. I honestly don't really like this scene that much. I'm not a fan of our first look at Luffy being him, like, explaining to the audience what his goals are for the series. I mean, he's gonna keep repeating it throughout the series, so you don't really need this scene here. And you know, part of the mystery of how the anime opened was that you saw this mysterious barrel and it's a surprise when there's a person inside of it, and it's a funny, goofy surprise. But for here we get to see what led him to hiding in the barrel. It's fine if you want to show like off-screen scenes for the live action that you wouldn't have seen in the animated version, but it just didn't need to be here, in my opinion. And then we get to Alvida. She's plundering another ship. Of course, Kobe is alongside her, cleaning up the blood afterwards, which was quite dark. They're definitely not afraid to show death, at least in this first episode. It's pretty brutal when she kills somebody, and you kind of understand right away that Kobe doesn't really want to be there, but he's kind of got no choice because he's scared of her. Then we transition to Kobe finding Luffy in the barrel. They kind of bond and agree that they should leave Alvida's ship. It's pretty different from the anime, but it's not terrible. I should mention throughout this episode we get some flashbacks of Luffy and Shanks. It's, for the most part, exactly what you get in the anime, just with like slightly different writing, slightly different flavor, but not really much to say about them. I will note the way that they do the flashback scenes, at the very least in this first episode, are very bad. They're just, I hate how they splice in a flashback every, I don't know, 10 or 20 minutes throughout this episode. It's very jarring. It feels like an episode made for people who have ADD and just need to pay attention to something every few seconds. Like, you can't just show the full flashback, you have to show little snippets of the flashback. Like they thought it was boring or something, and that people would only pay attention to a few minutes of the flashback at a time. I am not a fan of doing flashbacks in that style. It's a very modern thing to do, and I don't like it. I will also say that the kid actor for Luffy is kinda bad. He's very stiff in delivering his lines, but he's much better at pronouncing words than the teenage version of Luffy, so I don't know how to feel about that. And then we get Luffy and Kobe trying to plan to sneak off of the boat. Kind of a funny scene. Luffy, like, is holding a long oar, and he turns and he accidentally hits the bell with the oar, and that wakes everybody up. I wasn't expecting it, so it did actually make me laugh. It's kind of like Three Stooges type of comedy, you know? And then we get our Alvida versus Luffy fight scene, which is not bad. There are a few notes I have, of course. Of course I do. So obviously, it's Netflix. We can't have the fat jokes. Even though that's kind of pivotal to Alvida's character, is that she's insecure about being big. She compensated by threatening others to say that she is beautiful. It's part of Kobe's character that he's able to tell her that she's ugly to her face, and he is able to stand up for himself by saying, you're a fat pig, you know? Even Luffy, he still calls her a sea cow, but he says she's as dumb as a sea cow. It has nothing to do with her weight anymore. And rather than having them repeat on the ship that she's the most beautiful on the sea, she has them repeat that she's the strongest on the sea, which is a very different insecurity to have. Guess we all kind of just knew that they weren't gonna do jokes about Alvida being fat, even if that is supposed to be part of her character. We just can't have it in the current version of One Piece. Granted, she's only on screen for like 15 minutes of the first episode, so kinda doesn't matter. I have my doubts that we are ever going to see Alvida eat the smooth fruit and actually get skinny. That is definitely not gonna happen not in Netflix's One Piece, right? Then we get a short scene where Zoro fights someone from Baroque Works. It's a very good scene, and I enjoyed it a lot and makes Zoro seem really cool for the first introduction of him. But it's kind of unnecessary. The way that you use your time with Zoro probably could have been better in this first episode. At the same time, we get a, for the most part, like shot-for-shot remake of Nami stealing a bigger boat from the buggy pirates, which was a pretty good scene. A lot of the scenes that are just shot-for-shot remakes of the anime are some of the best scenes, honestly. We get the scene where Zoro is at the bar, little girl makes her rice bowls, and then accidentally spills them on Morgan's son. Then he gets angry, and then Zoro kicks his ass. Luffy and Nami are both at the bar when this happens, so they both witness it. Luffy decides he wants Zoro to be his first mate because he's really strong. They kind of gloss over why, but Zoro does turn himself in to the Marines as a prisoner. Luffy then breaks in and meets up with Zoro and is basically like, hey, want to join my crew? And Zoro's like, I don't know who the fuck you are, and I have no personal connection to you. And this is one of the only scenes where Luffy and Zoro interact in the whole episode, kind of doing Zoro a bit dirty, honestly. Throughout the whole episode, they just really gloss over the character motivations, and it doesn't really feel like he makes any personal connection with Luffy, so it doesn't really make sense that he later on joins with Luffy. Regardless, the scene continues and Luffy unties Zoro and then just leaves. While Luffy searches inside the building, he finds Nami, who is dressed up as a Marine, undercover, looking for the map. But Luffy recognizes that she's not actually a Marine, and so the two of them kind of work together to find the map. Meanwhile, Zoro gets his swords back from Helmeppo, who is naked, and then gets his revenge on him by cutting off his hair to mimic the original hair that he has in the anime, which is, you know, not something that would make me laugh, but some people might find that funny because his hair is kind of goofy in the anime, so it makes sense that someone cut it very badly, like Zoro. Meanwhile, Nami is trying to crack this safe that has the map in it, but Morgan's has found out what they're doing, so he's trying to get them before they steal his stuff. Luffy pulls out the safe and kind of slingshots the both of them out the window. Zoro decides, yeah, I'll join the two of you and fight the Marines with you guys. Just because, like I said, they really gloss over Zoro's character motivations in this first episode. Not good. Could have done better. Should have done better, in fact. But the fight scene where they all work together to like beat up submarines is pretty cool, and they beat Morgans together, and then they run off to go sail away. It makes sense for Luffy and Nami to sail away together in this instance because she needs him to carry the big ass safe that he pulled out of the ground. He needs her to unlock the safe and get the map out of it. Zoro, he needs to escape the Marines, but like I said, he could have just done that on his own. He didn't really need to go with them. And while they escape together, they consistently say, oh, we're not a crew though. Yeah, I just can't help but question motivations. So Helmeppo tries to stop them, but Kobe steps in and defends them before saying his goodbye to Luffy and saying, you know, next time we meet, I'll be a Marine, you'll be a pirate, and we'll be enemies. A nice send-off overall. At the end of the episode, we get to see the best character ever in One Piece, Vice Admiral Garp, baby. Oh, what, you thought I was gonna say Buggy? Nah, man. Garp, best character, hands down favorite character, 10 out of 10. He's very cool. He gets word that Luffy has been spotted and he decides to make his move on finding Luffy. And then we get the Buggy reveal and Buggy hears about how they stole the map. He decides he wants the map and so he's gonna go after the Straw Hat crew. I guess it kind of vaguely makes sense he would want a map to the Grand Line, but it also makes sense that in general, you know, Nami also stole his ship, a lot of property that he's interested in retrieving back. But yeah, that's how we end the first episode. As I said, very choppy, very condensed. Some scenes could have been done better, but it's not horrible, right? I just feel like they wanted to cover a lot of ground in this first episode with having a lot of characters introduced right away, having all of their independent storylines connect to each other right away, and they're kind of using the plot point of this map to achieve that goal. But there's a lot to compliment, even if it was choppy, not very newcomer friendly, a bit corny in some sections. It did actually manage to get me to laugh at some jokes, which is quite rare. I do feel like the characters were in character, which is a big thing, especially for these Netflix adaptations. The fight scenes, although they were short, were pretty fun. I'm excited to see more of those as we get further in to the Netflix One Piece series. Didn't like the flashbacks being spliced up the way that they were. There's a lot of things that are just completely glossed over. Maybe they could have used their time a little better for the first episode, but I can see why people are saying that Netflix's One Piece is very good. It is in fact the most accurate of all of the adaptations Netflix has done. Even the little things that I mentioned that were very, very different from the anime, it's like not even that different or not even that big of a deal. So I will be curious to keep watching. Overall, my rating for the first episode, kinda meh. Kind of middle ground, maybe a little bit above compared to other Netflix adaptations because it's kind of a low bar. Maybe 6 out of 10. It's an okay introduction, but I do think they could have used their time better. That's my big complaint about this first episode. Zoro's motivations just were not quite clear. He seems very cool. They got that nailed down. They made sure he had a lot of very cool scenes and that he's very moody. I feel like the actor playing Zoro has probably dreamed about playing Zoro all his life, because he kind of just strikes me as that type of guy. Just could have used a better character arc. I'm really surprised that they didn't dedicate the first episode almost entirely to Zoro and his story when he's first introduced in One Piece. They didn't do any of his flashbacks or anything, which is an interesting choice. But yeah, we'll see where this goes. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about the first episode of Netflix's One Piece. Like the video if you did enjoy. Subscribe! Check out the fan club if you'd like to see some of the comics that I'm making right now. Yes, I do make comics, and you can sign up for the mailing list of my newest one in the works, Reaper, a dark fantasy. Links in the description. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye! Program restart.